And that is Marcus Mosher that you're about to hear. And if you're watching us on Brinks TV, you can see his beautiful mug with a brand new jersey behind him. I should add a beautiful, gorgeous
home. Move out of the way a little bit.
Love, yeah, you should. Just for a second.
It's a nice Earl Campbell jersey. The reason
I'm waiting. Go ahead. I know you're about to say something very poignant.
Thank you for interrupting me. The reason why I have that jersey behind me, Elliot, is because my Pittsburgh Steelers, and I'm saying my because I picked them, lost to the Green Bay Packers. I thought they would cover the spread at least. I picked them to win outright. And listen, you had to be just a little bit nervous after the first two drives of this game where the Steelers scored a touchdown and then the Packers went 3 and out on the next one. You had to be at least a little bit nervous, right?
I guess. Sure, kind of. I just wanted to tell you that when you kind of moved out of the way so I could see the jersey, I could almost smell your car. I have a couple of bones to pick, but I was curious what your thought off the top was about week 4.
I thought it was really good. We had a lot of really fun games that came down to the last kick. But Elliot, here's my biggest takeaway. In life, sometimes it's really important to know when it's time to go. Right. And sometimes it happens with a job. You and I have both left jobs. Maybe it's a relationship. Sometimes you just need to break it off. The Steelers, they should have let go of Ben Roethlisberger last year. It's done, right? Like it's over. He's completely washed up. He's holding this team back. And it took us a little while to get there, but I'm completely out on the Steelers team. I thought they had a chance to maybe win the AFC North, surprise some people. They look old. They look slow. They're done.
To be honest, with that preamble, that is not where I thought you were going. About a guy needing to leave a job right now. That's all I'm going to say about that. We'll get to that team in just a second. Little bone I have to pick comes from the Titans-Jets game. I know most of America, well, actually a lot of America watched the end of that game because CBS went to it, but how many times, Marcus, do we see in the NFL today? And this is kind of, this is my old man rant when you tell me I'm an old soul. I got to keep up my brand awareness, right? So, or brand loyalty to myself.
Yes.
Here's the thing. I get it. The complexity of the game. People love to talk about it. They love to tweet about it. They love to tweet about schemes. We have beat writers showing plays and sending out gifts and all this kind of stuff. And that's great. I think the more, the better, as long as you know what you're looking at. But don't you think sometimes, Marcus, we can get a little too complicated? Like sometimes you just need to call a play, right? You just need to call a play. You're in overtime. It's 3rd down and 5. You're setting up right now for a 45-yard field goal. Get a play called. You've only got one chance at this. Throw something in the end zone or just run it in the middle, get 2 yards and set up your field goal kicker for a 43-yard kick. Here's what you don't do. You don't sit here and dilly-dally and think, what is the cute, most appropriate little play I can fake the defense out with? Because you know what happens when you do that? Your quarterback doesn't hear in time. He tries to get him lined up. You don't. You get a delay a game, and then your kicker's lining up for a 50-yard field goal. And guess what happened on that 50-yard field goal?
He missed it by about 3 yards left, right?
Yes. How many times have we seen this in the NFL the last couple of years? Trying to get that perfect play call, and you get ridiculous. You need to have some quick calls, and sometimes just go simple, right? What would have been wrong right there with the Derrick Henry run right up the middle? Get the tie. If you say, yeah, but I want to be aggressive and we want to try and score a touchdown, hey, that's great as long as you call a play, right? You're never going to beat Madden if you're sitting there looking at all the plays and your play clock runs out, right? It drove me absolutely insane, and I think that's when the complexity and the intricacies of the game become a little too much.
Yeah, there was a lot of coaching malpractice over the weekend by the Titans, by some other teams. I think John Gruden had some bad ones on Monday Night Football. We don't even have to talk about Jacksonville, but just a lot of bad coaches right now in the NFL. I know you think Mike McCarthy screwed this one up as well at the end of the game. Would you like to talk about that or no?
No, let's get there. Because I have a great question for you regarding the Cowboys when we get to the power rankings. But this is Power Rankings Tuesday. Let's start on the list. You see it there. If you're watching along on Brinks TV, you see it there on the column. If you're listening, I'm going to give it all to you right now. Let's start with 32 through 25. The Houston Texans, they've been an abomination. They have been outscored 81-16 since losing Tyrod Taylor. The Dolphins, perhaps I was wrong. about the organization, where they're headed. They look terrible. They are 31. Jets finally got a win. How many more are coming? They're number 30. Jaguars, all sorts of problems today, and Trevor Lawrence ain't one. They're 29. Got the Lions at 28. I think they are who we thought they were, sort of. They have some fight in them, although the Bears were taking it to them early. The Falcons, Marcus says they look lifeless. I say they look listless. They're 27. Got the Washington Football Club. They are an enigma, as Marcus points out, and they are 30th in points per game allowed right now. And then the Bears. Was this like a season-saving win a la the Colts, who we're going to get to in a minute? So that's 32 through 25. Marcus, what sticks out to you there?
Miami at 31. It's not that I disagree with the ranking. I just think I'm so disappointed with this team, right? Like when they draft Jalen Waddle at number 6 and you trade a first-round pick away to go get him, and you bring in Will Fuller. Elliot, I thought this was going to be like a really explosive offense that was throwing the ball down the field. And it's the opposite. Like Brian Flores after the game said, yeah, we have a methodical offense that likes to try to chew up clock. And it's like, what are you doing? You should be throwing the ball down the field to Jalen Waddle and Will Fuller, I don't know, 10 combined times a game. I don't know. I don't feel good about this Miami team. And I really thought they were going to be a playoff team this year. I don't get it.
You know, it's kind of like when you kick your Zoom camera with your sandal. You make mistakes, but you got to come back. Like I just did. I came back. I just flawlessly came back. The Falcons in Washington, they're at 27 and 26. Atlanta at 27. I've got Washington football team at 26. Boy, when you hear scouts talk about ball skills, it's one of those things that you really wonder, like, okay, how much does that really play a role? But if you saw the Washington Atlanta highlight, there were a couple of prayers in that game from Taylor Heineke. Washington escapes with a win. Atlanta still dinking and dunking down the field. Any thoughts on whether you think Washington can actually show itself to be legit, or at this point, are you already giving up on them?
No, I'm not giving up on Washington because they have a lot of talent on defense. I know they're not playing well. They're allowing the 3rd most points in the league right now, despite all those first rounders. But Taylor Heineke looks surprisingly competent. Like every time he plays, he's not awful. And they got Curtis Samuel back. I don't know.
What a vote of confidence. When he plays, he doesn't look awful.
I could be way more excited about it, but I don't want to be too reactionary, right? After one game, because it is the Atlanta defense. But if he can be like mediocre and the defense can get back to what we saw last year, it's a borderline playoff team. We just haven't seen it yet.
A couple other thoughts on these teams. The Lions, Jared Goff, 10 yards per completion. But I was telling Marcus before we started recording that let's take away the 50-yard middle screen to DeAndre Swift and garbage time against the 49ers, really wondering, they're just not getting enough big plays. I commend Jacksonville the other night, although if you listen to our pod on Friday, it really felt like the Jacks should have run the ball and given the ball to James Robinson on their last drive. Of course, they could have met about that with the coaching staff after the game, but that didn't happen.
They weren't available.
Yes. And then, the Chicago Bears, that's my highest team here. Again, we got Atlanta at 32, Miami at 31, the Jets at 30, Jags at 29, Lions at 28, Falcons at 27, Washington Football Club at 26, and the Bears, the highest team out of this group, I should say. Are you encouraged by what you saw from Justin Fields? Do you think the Bears can still make a run, given that we have an expanded season and an expanded playoff format?
I do, because the offense looked better suited for Justin Fields. They were throwing the ball down the field to Darnell Mooney. Now, David Montgomery is going to be out for about the next month, so we'll see how the running back situation is there. But if they're throwing the ball down the field and those two edge rushers and Khalil Mack and Robert Quinn are just wrecking havoc on offenses, I think so. They've got a big game with the Raiders this week that I'm excited to talk about on Thursday.
When I was a kid and I'd read like Street and Smith or those preview magazines, it always say that a pass rusher wreaked havoc. That's what I always thought, it wreaked havoc. And you say it wrecked havoc. I need an English major. I really don't know what the right pronunciation is.
It's not my specialty. Sorry. It's probably, they're good. Let me just rephrase it. They're good.
They're good. I don't know how good the Bears are without David Montgomery, though, Marcus. I really think they need him this year. I thought he would have at least 1,250 yards rushing. We will see. Let's look at the next batch of teams, 24 through 17. We'll start with the New York Giants, who got the big road win in New Orleans. If you listen to our Friday pod, we went through the quarterbacks of recent vintage. Daniel Jones talking there. Titans coaching at 23. That's all I have to say about that. Biggest dropper of the week. Philadelphia Eagles at 22, Marcus. Jalen Hurts, I'm encouraged. Their offensive line so banged up, and they still played well. Pittsburgh Steelers did not play well. And as you said, they're old and slow. You said that before we started the pod, and I cannot agree more. The Colts, like the Bears, was this a season-saving win? They're at 20, got the Broncos at 19. Teddy B got injured. Are these guys pretenders? The Saints at 18. I don't think anyone in our business, Marcus, or any fan knows what to make of this football team. And the Vikings, they should be better, right? You were telling me earlier, 3-1 offline. So that's number 17. Let's start with them. They got the close loss to the Browns. They had a lot of opportunities in that game, very low scoring game. Where do you put Minnesota right now? Do I have them in the right spot at 17?
I think so. They have 3 losses by combined 11 points, an overtime loss to the Bengals. They obviously lost this week to the Browns. And, they should have beat the Cardinals if it wasn't for, what was a 34-yard field goal they missed.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think they're really talented on offense, and they played really well on defense against Cleveland. It's just, do I trust them to eventually figure it out and find ways to win these games at the end? I don't know. They might end up being like the best 5-12 team we've ever had in the NFL. Elliot, it's just, they're so hard to figure out.
I still can't figure out the Saints quarterback situation. I know Taysom Hill, apparently he stubbed his toe or something on a bad throw in that game. Maybe they're just holding out until they get Michael Thomas back late November, early December. If they can stay around 500, maybe they can make a little push. Again, we do have an expanded playoff format. We have 17 games this year to do it. So the season's going to go pretty deep.
Can I stick with the Saints really quickly?
Yeah, sure.
They have the least amount of explosive plays in the NFL. And that is shocking for a Sean Payton offense, right? You would think with Jameis Winston, they would be throwing the ball down the field. Alvin Kamara would be ripping off these big runs. It's just not happening. This offense is clunky. It doesn't work. I'm curious to see if Sean Payton can fix it over the next couple of months.
And Alvin Kamara is in line for like 40-something catches. Definitely not his usual production.
Yep.
Yeah, a lot of running. I said the Titans coaching, I mentioned what they did in that overtime game. They deserve to lose to the Jets. They're my biggest dropper. They're at 23. Philadelphia, they still have major problems on defense. But I tell you what, Hargrave in the middle is so good, Marcus. If you haven't watched this guy that much, man, I know the Eagles didn't play well against the Cowboys, and I know they got beat by Kansas City. But, man, that dude is going to be an all-pro this year. I think one other team here, the Colts, I have them at 20. They're 1-3. Carson Wentz played pretty well. Given that we have a 17-game season, what does 1-3 look like?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it also depends on your division, right? They're 1 game back of the Titans, who are 2-2, leading that division. And it's not like Jacksonville and Houston are going to put up much resistance. So I think of all the 1-3 teams, they're the team that should panic the least. But they have some major injuries as well. And I wonder if they're going to be able to survive all of these by the time we get to the end of the year.
Well, they've been playing banged up, but that you really got to what I was getting at was the calculus that you have when you're looking at these teams and how we used to look at a record in a 16-game season. I'm not sure we know how to do that yet. And Tony Romo said it on the broadcast this week that he's not sure if 0-2 or 1-3 mean the same things. I think we're all going to learn that as the season goes along. We're also going to learn about the next batch of teams because, as you're fond of saying, these are all second-tier teams. So let's look at 16 through 9. Got the Bengals at 16. I'm not gloating, but I'm happy about it. I thought these guys were going to be better. Very resilient football team. Your brother's Bengals would have lost that game. Actually, your Bengals would have lost that game. The 49ers, Jimmy G got the cap strain. They've got quarterback questions there. A lot of questions of the head coach there about the quarterback. Carolina at 14. Marcus says he's encouraged about the Panthers. I tend to agree, especially Sands, their best player. Seahawks, these are one of those teams like the Ravens when your organizational culture, your infrastructure kind of, I don't want to say guarantees that you're going to be competitive, but it puts you in the right position.
They expect it, right?
Yes,
they expect to be competitive and to win every game.
Absolutely. They are 13. Got the Patriots at 12. If you didn't watch that game and you look at box scores, you only look at fantasy points, you're going to have no idea of how well Mac Jones played, given the environment, the conditions. Got the Raiders 11. The game was going to be up at some point, Marcus, with the injuries and the way they've been winning some of these games. Got the Cowboys at 10. Trayvon Diggs with an E is going to be a star. And then the Kansas City Chiefs at 9. Hey, I love the Chiefs. My dad's favorite team. I grew up trying to watch them, but they were so bad in the 80s that They were never on when I was a little kid. That said, their defense is really bad, Marcus. Let's start there. Can you trust Kansas City, not only this week, which we'll get to on the Thursday pod, shameless plug. Can you trust that defense going forward?
No, you can't. But I'm not sure it matters, because when you have Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid and Tyreek Hill, you're going to win a lot of games. They played an incredibly difficult schedule so far, right? And it doesn't get any easier this week. And the division's tough, but they're going to find a way to get to 11 or 12 wins, and they're going to be in the playoffs. So yeah, it's not going to be fun to watch them on defense, but I ultimately don't know if it's going to prevent them from accomplishing their goals.
Yeah, and Mahomes forced another one in this game. We had to remember that Mahomes is still just a fifth-year quarterback. You're going to have, sometimes guys trust their arms a little bit too much. And speaking of young quarterbacks, I want to go to the back end of this group, the Bengals at 16. On our Friday pod, after we got off the kind of the Bengals Jags topic, we did a redraft of the quarterbacks of the last 3 years, and Joe Burrow went very high. Marcus, I think we've seen maybe not enough of him yet, but we've seen enough to know that this team is going to be a tough out for anybody in the regular season. Maybe they're not a playoff team. Maybe they go 8-9, but I love the way they fought back. They had a nice 5-minute drive to close out that game.
Yeah. I will say, if you have a franchise altering quarterback under center, the timeline for which you actually compete is typically faster than anyone expects. Look at the Chiefs in 2017 with Mahomes. Look at Lamar Jackson in 2018 with the Ravens. Is there a chance that this Bengals team, who is 3-1, and I saw some odds today where they're like 10-1 to win the AFC North, is there a chance that they're just the best team in this division and they just surprise all of us and win 10, 11 games this year?
I don't think so. I still believe in Cleveland, but I will go this route with you. I think there's a chance they sweep Pittsburgh. I think there's a chance they split with Baltimore and Cleveland in the regular season, giving them a plus division record. And maybe they can get that 7th spot. I'm not ready to anoint them the best team in the division, but I was really impressed the other night. Speaking of quarterback, 15, the 49ers, and 14, the Panthers. The 49ers, I think, have some question marks of what they're going to do with Jimmy G and how much are we going to see of Trey Lance and how ready is he? Carolina has no questions at quarterback to me. And when I say that, I mean, for people that are still doubting, is this just an early season aberration? I've seen enough of Sam Darnold. I know that Diggs picked him a couple of times with Marcus. He comes right back. He still has all the talent in the world, but I was really impressed with the way the Panthers hung in there and really made a game of it at the end.
Sam Darnold leading the NFL in touchdown rushes this year, not for quarterbacks, for all players. I mean, I don't know if Darnold's ever going to be a franchise guy, but is he significantly better than what we saw with the Jets? Absolutely. Can you win with Darnold? I think so. So I think the Panthers should be encouraged despite the loss.
So Bengals at 16, 49ers at 15, Panthers at 14, Seattle at 13. We talked about Kansas City at 9, 10, 11, 12 teams here. Got the Raiders at 10, the Raiders at 11, Cowboys at 10, and the Patriots at 12. I would love to see how all three of these teams would play each other. I think these three teams are very even, but in different ways. I trust the Patriots defense the most out of this group. I think I trust Derek Carr in clutch situations the most, although last night caught up to him. But consistency-wise, probably Dak Prescott. And believe it or not, I can't believe I'm saying this, big plays on defense, the Cowboys. And I don't know the last time you could say, man, when it comes to big plays on defense, I'm taking the Cowboys. And by big plays, I'm not talking about a tackle for a loss. I'm talking about interceptions, pick sixes, forced fumbles. It's unbelievable.
I will point out with New England sitting at 12. Did they move up in your power rankings despite the loss, right?
Yes, they did.
And, they moved up 5 spots, thanks for our graphic team at the bottom.
Yeah, look at that.
I agree with that. I thought they looked really good. The most important thing from that Sunday night game against Tampa Bay, the moment wasn't too big for Mac Jones. Like in the rain against Tampa Bay's defense with only 2 minutes left, he drove them down there and they got a field goal opportunity, right? Like that's really, really good. So if you're a Patriots fan, I know you're 1-3, you should be encouraged because I do think this team in the long run is going to be just fine.
They need to get more from the run game. They didn't get anything the other night. It's something I think the Raiders can do. Peyton Barber had 100 yards the week before, not as productive against the Chargers, but I think some of that, obviously Josh Jacobs was back, but I mean, the running game as a whole,
he wasn't back though. Like he was out there playing, right?
And some of that was game situation as well. Yep. When you get down 21-0, the Cowboys, we know, can run the football, and not just because the guy they're paying tons of money to. Let's go to the top 8 here. Speaking of a team that can run the ball, in fact, they made it everyone's business how well they run the football this week. The Baltimore Ravens at number 8. I don't know if you saw the spat there with Vic Fangio, the Broncos, the Ravens going for a team record. I know you did. I was talking to the masses. I was talking to Doug.
I enjoyed it. Listen, by the way, Vic Fangio is 100% wrong here, by the way, just to point that out.
All right. We'll get to your hot takes fresh out of the sports oven as soon as I get to the rest of them here. Okay. The Cleveland Browns I have at number 7, the Chargers at number 6. That team didn't move. Green Bay at number 5, Tampa Bay at 4, the Rams at 3, the Cardinals at 2, and the Bills at 1. Heavily debated 1 and 2 in my mind. We will get to that in a second. Let's start with the bottom and where you were going with the bottom of this grouping. Again, Baltimore at 8. You already told me you thought Cleveland at 7. They were a little disappointing. I did drop them in the win, which might have been unfair given that they won, against a team that you think could be better. But going to Baltimore, my first question to you is, do you think Baltimore is better than Cleveland? And my second question to you is, does it really matter that you get 100 yards rushing however many games in a row?
I think it does for the players, right? It's pretty clear the players care about it. I saw Marlon Humphrey, their cornerback, said that they were watching the stat all game long. So if the players care about it, I don't blame Harbaugh at all for doing the run at the end of the game, because it matters to them. And that's how you kind of build morale and chemistry, is by little records. And, it makes the season not feel so long when you're doing things like that. So that's why I didn't care at all.
Why does it matter to Marlon Humphrey and not Lamar Jackson?
Because it's a team thing, right? Like, they're rooting for these guys. It's important to them. I mean, you can debate if it's silly or not, but they obviously care about it.
I didn't really love the way Harbaugh responded to it. He said, I'm not going to even give that criticism. I think the best thing to do is just to say, and it's obviously hindsight's 2020, but I think I would have liked it better if Harbaugh said, look, I understand why Vic is upset. It makes sense to me, but this is why we did it, just to let everyone know. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Respond with not just half class, but total class. I'm not coming down too hard on Harbaugh. I tend to agree with you here that Fangio was in the wrong, but I also didn't think Vic Fangio overreacted. I mean, if you saw his press conference, it's one of those things where if you wrote it down or if you saw it on paper, you would think it was worse than when you actually heard him say it, in my opinion.
He doesn't need to say it. It's not a big deal. But I got a question for you.
Sure.
1 through 8 here. I don't disagree with any of the rankings, but what's so painfully obvious to me is that I trust 7 of the 8 quarterbacks here to win a game at the end. I trust them all to win multiple playoff games. I think all 7 of these quarterbacks can win a Super Bowl. There's one in here I do not trust at all, and it's Baker Mayfield.
I knew you were going to say that.
And it's why I have a hard time believing, despite how good the rest of that roster is, that they actually can compete and win a Super Bowl this year.
Okay. So I would come back at you with, why do you not trust Baker, but you trust Josh Allen? He has been mostly mediocre this season. The Bills' offense, I think, has been mostly mediocre.
Yeah, I mean, and I'll be honest, he's the other one that you could convince me that I'm, that I don't trust him in big games, because we haven't quite seen it yet. I've seen him at least play well in multiple playoff games, but there's just too often when there's guys wide open for Baker Mayfield and he's just not making the play, or he's taking the key sack. They've had 4 fourth downs over the last 2 weeks that they just haven't converted, and 3 of them have been sacks. So it's like, man, I want to see Baker be better before I can put them in my top 5 or 6 teams.
I understand. So let's talk about that in regards to 6, 5, 4, and 3. So the Chargers at 6, I do trust Justin Herbert to make every throw and to make those plays. I want to get to a Chargers point, though, in a minute. Green Bay, obviously, I trust Aaron Rodgers. He made the plays when he had to. Ben Roethlisberger missed Juju on 2 possible touchdowns in that game. Tom Brady played in really terrible conditions. I think a lot of pressure on him personally. I'm not apologizing for Tom Brady, but it is hard.
It's understandable, to play, right?
Yeah, a wet ball. I know Troy Aikman always said he had trouble throwing a wet ball. A lot of quarterbacks do. Matt Stafford did not play well. He missed a lot of throws early in that game, but he's been great so far. I'm not going to let one game mar what I think of a guy that's been around for over a decade playing high level of football. So that gets us to 2-1. Why Buffalo over Arizona? And for me, Marcus, I like everything that Buffalo is doing holistically. they kind of batten down the hatches. After you saw week one, they had some sloppiness on offense. They had sloppiness on special teams. They even had sloppiness on the back end late in that game. And you're not seeing that. You may not see this great offense right now, but they don't need to be great offensively. And when you're beating Miami 35-0 in the third quarter, like they were 2 weeks ago, how much do you need Josh Allen to do? That's where our sport gets a little too into fantasy, and people need to realize the game situation. I trust Arizona's offense a lot more. I think Kyler Murray might be the MVP of the league right now, but I don't know that I trust Arizona, again, holistically the way I do the Bills. What about you?
Yeah, I'll start with Buffalo because their schedule of all the teams we're going to talk about has been the least impressive, right? However,
you play who's on your schedule, though.
You play who's on your schedule, but they've done exactly what you want to see them do against bad teams. They didn't let the Dolphins hang around. They didn't let the Texans hang around. Like, they just completely blew the doors off of those teams. And even Washington, right? Like, that game was really never competitive. So that's what you do to bad teams. I'm curious to see how they play, like this week against Chiefs, against a good team, but they're doing exactly what they should be doing right now.
I still remember when Jimmy Johnson got hired to coach the Cowboys. Buddy Ryan's quip, he was coaching the Eagles at the time, was there's no East Carolinas on the schedule, referencing Jimmy Johnson's time at Miami. Well, we know who had the last laugh on that. And if you've been following the Urban Meyer situation outside of the ridiculousness of what he did, but just from a coaching standpoint, doesn't it show how hard it is for a guy who wins a national championship or a guy who's known as a great college coach to come in and win? Jimmy Johnson won the national title, Marcus, in 1987 with the Hurricanes. And 5 years later, he already had a Super Bowl ring. Yeah. I just think when a guy struggles like that, it just screams why Jimmy Johnson belonged in the Hall of Fame. Going to your point with the Bills, they've blown out their competition. Their defense looks great. They're first in points allowed. They're second in points scored. The Arizona Cardinals, though, they couldn't have been more impressive, beating the Rams the way they did. Their offense, I've got to eat some crow here. I didn't really think AJ Green was going to do much for that team. I'm wrong. He has contributed. They've spread the ball around, but he has been a big part of that. Maybe their running backs don't wow you, but they've gotten some production from Edmonds and Connor. Do you trust the Cardinals defense if it came down to a championship game?
I think I do, because they've got enough playmakers, right? With Chandler Jones and JJ Watt up front. I think Budda Baker, one of the best safeties in the league, and this Byron Murphy just keeps making big plays for them. So it's not going to be a defense, Elliot, that holds you to 17 points. It's just not what they're going to do. But can they make 4 big plays over the course of a game to kind of change the momentum and flip the field position? I think so. So I do believe in that.
Did you see the fake poster that JJ Watt posted, I guess you would say, of him and Chandler Jones? That was sweet.
Yes.
Chandler Jones looked in that. He looked like total like Crockett and Tubbs, but he looked like, that 1984 PI.
Yes.
It was amazing. So just to go over the top 8 one more time, we got Baltimore at 8, Cleveland at 7, Chargers at 6, Packers at 5, Buccaneers at 4, Rams at 3, the Cardinals at 2, and the Buffalo Bills right now. I have number 1. Marcus says he doesn't really have a problem with my order, but I'd like to ask you a question regarding the Chargers. I want to circle back to that game since that was last night. So Austin Eckler had a really good game, ran tough inside. I give the Chargers offensive line a lot of credit for that. Made a great little catch over the shoulder on a wheel route. If you were going to choose right now between Ezekiel Elliott and Austin Eckler at the same cost, who would you rather have?
So just in a vacuum or for the Chargers? Like if the Chargers had the opportunity to pick one of those guys, which one would I rather have?
Which one would you rather have?
I'm not the biggest Ezekiel Elliott fan, but I actually think I would pick Zeke in this scenario. And the reason why is I think Herbert is a quarterback. If you protect him fairly well, he's just going to find somebody to be open, right? And I think Ezekiel Elliott's one of the best pass protecting running backs in football. And that offensive line is a little shaky in a couple spots. I think that's the only reason, because Zeke can help Herbert stay upright. I don't know, Elliot. I just get these vibes from Herbert like young Aaron Rodgers. If you protect him, he is going to dice you up, and it doesn't matter who's out there. So that's why I'd go with Zeke.
All right, but in fairness, Eckler was productive in the passing game before Herbert ever even got in the lineup.
Absolutely.
And Eckler's a tough little runner. He gets yards after contact.
It's nothing to take away from Eckler, because he's a phenomenal player. Like he's so good. Like I know a lot of people call him a scat back, and that's not really fair because he can run inside. He's so tough. I just think Zeke's strength as a pass protector and inside runner would make a lot of sense for this team.
That's fair. And I will say this about Zeke. He's been durable. Austin Eckler's had some injuries, but I was just so impressed with him before the game last night. And I think the national audience, so to speak, got to see just how good this guy is.
Yes.
Unfortunately, he's missed time. And so sometimes he's been on TV. He hasn't been available, but he is I don't want to say he's the perfect modern back, but he certainly fits in that paradigm of what teams need from their running back these days. Let's go over the list one more time. We'll start from, well, I say from the top, but really from the bottom, which of course are the Texans. Again, I think since Tyrod went out in that Cleveland game, they've been outscored 81-16. That's what I counted. We got the Miami Dolphins at 31. They look really bad right now. Congratulations to the Jets. They are 30. Jags, I still believe in Trevor Lawrence. I think he showed a lot at 29. The Lions, they really need a win. They lost Ragnow, an important offensive lineman to them. They're at 28. The Falcons at 27. That win against the Giants might have been an aberration. Washington football team, very puzzling team at 26. The Chicago Bears get a win to maybe save their season at 25. Got the Giants at 24. Admittedly, I probably could have put them higher given their win. Tennessee, I probably could have put them lower, even though I dropped them over 10 spots. They are 23. Philadelphia at 22. So impressed with that makeshift offensive line. They've lost, I think, 4 starters already. Pittsburgh Steelers at 21. They are old and slow, according to Marcus. He's always complimentary of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Indianapolis Colts. Carson Wentz played a little bit better. They needed that win. The Broncos at 19. Questions because of health at quarterback. Saints at 18. Nobody knows what the heck they are. Minnesota at 17. Maybe ditto on that, but we think they're better than that. And then from 16 down to 9, we've got Cincinnati at 16, the 49ers at 15. They played in a couple Super Bowls against each other. Carolina at 14. Love the way they fought back. Seattle at 13. They're always going to hang in there. You can bet they're probably going to be in the playoffs again. New England at 12. Impressive Mac Jones. The Raiders at 11. It was going to catch up to him at some point. I'm still impressed with Derek Carr. He got them back in that game again. Yeah. It just didn't happen. Cowboys at 10. They did get the win against Carolina, and they're starting to look really good on defense. Oh, I hesitate to say that. Kansas City needs to look better on defense. They are number 9. Now at our top 8, I don't know if you know this, Marcus, but Baltimore got 100 yards rushing. They're at number 8. Cleveland gets a win on the road at number 7. The Chargers at 6. Marcus is a huge fan of Justin Herbert at this point. I think he's been converted completely. Green Bay at number 5. Week 1 told us nothing about that team. Tampa Bay at 4. Emotional win. We'll see how they recover from that, or if they're flat this week after that. The Rams at number 3, big loss for them. Arizona at 2 and Buffalo at 1. Really debated this. I'm comfortable with Buffalo at 1 for now, but I guess we're going to find out, aren't we, this week?
Yeah. A couple thoughts really quickly. I think we have like 10 legitimate Super Bowl contenders, and I think they're the top 10 teams that you ranked. And it wouldn't be shocking to see any of those teams win the Super Bowl. Like, Elliot, if I told you 3 months from now, the Baltimore Ravens won the Super Bowl, you wouldn't be shocked at all, right? No. Not at all. The other thing I was going to mention is which week 1 result, kind of looking back now, is more shocking? The Bills losing to the Steelers or the Packers getting blown out by the Saints?
That Packers Saints was shocking at the time. Retrospectively, Buffalo, Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
I that was an ugly game. It's a good uniform matchup, but it's an ugly game. Speaking of uni matchups, I love uni talk, and I love, again, Marcus has a beautiful Love You Blue Earl Campbell jersey behind his big old head. Chargers Raiders last night was fantastic AFL uni matchup. The Chargers have my favorite uniform look in the league. I like the Raiders look. I like the Raiders whites. Yeah. I know everyone's big on the blacks. I still think the Raiders white at Kansas City looks awesome. That matchup actually is great either way. I know you logged on just to hear uni talk, but I just had to say that. Speaking of the Buffalo Kansas City game coming up, we do a picks podcast every Thursday. It's usually about this time, 12 o'clock Pacific. And then we do a reaction on Friday. If you didn't catch our reaction to Bengals Jags, we spent a little bit of time on Bengals Jags last week, but we did a redrafting. This is Marcus's idea, good idea, of the quarterbacks taken in the draft from 2019 to 2021. And there were some really interesting choices to be made. Marcus really wanted to get Ben DiNucci in there. He wasn't able to do it. But vote of confidence for Daniel Jones, maybe taking a couple of guys a little higher than you expected. But if you can, check out on Spotify. I sound like Tony Romo right now with the raspy. Sometimes I just want him to take a swig of water, man.
That's all right. I'll let you do it. I'm gonna ask you guys a question. Our listeners a question right now.
Sure.
I want to know what your guys' favorite uniform matchup is. Because for me, I've got a couple. I think like the Cowboys and Steelers when they play each other. Like when the Cowboys are wearing the whites and the Steelers are wearing the blacks. This is one of my favorites. I'm a little biased. I think like Cowboy 49ers looks really good. But I want to know your guys' thoughts. So leave us a review. Tell us your favorite uniform matchup. We'd love to hear it.
Yeah, I mean, Jags Titans.
Oh, that's a really good one, isn't it?
Remember when the Jags wore their monochrome? I don't even know what to call that. It looked like castor oil or something. I don't know what that was.
Is Lions Packers an underrated uniform matchup? Because I think it's very good together.
I'll be honest, when the Lions play on Thanksgiving and wear their throwbacks,
I love it.
I love it. Dude.
I agree.
It looks so good.
So there you go. We're in agreement there.
For a change. I'm impressed that you agreed with my top 8. But I don't know that I agree yet. I am still wavering on Arizona and Buffalo, but I like Buffalo on a neutral field to win a best of 7. That's the way I look at it right now. We'll find out a lot about those teams in the coming weeks. As for us, we're going to get out of here, but you can always follow Marcus at Marcus Mosher. I'm at Harrison NFL. I did spell Trayvon Diggs' name right on the show. We thank Courtney and Brinks TV for the video portion. Catch us on Spotify, iTunes, and wherever you get your podcasts. We're out of here.